All right, everybody, hate it or love it, it's time for another partner rundown on the game plan. Let's get right into it. This week's guest on the game plan was former NFL PA President Eric Winston. Jay, you worked at the NFL for years. What's your thoughts on the collective bargaining agreement?
Yeah, Tim, I was just in awe listening to Eric about his tenure as NFL PA president, just how much he got accomplished over his time there. And look, these things are not easy. I mean, they took NFL revenue 47%, which was the players' split in the past CBA, up to 48%, and then with a kicker to go to 49% when the league gets to a 17-game season. Now, add on top of that, okay, 1% probably isn't a lot, but when you look at it from the perspective of the league as a $15 billion property, then $150 million added to what the players are getting is incredible. So on top of that, they added roster spots. They increased the minimum for for practice squad guys. And then on top of that, they relaxed drug testing and took some disciplinary power away from the commissioner, all getting accomplished while the star players are on Twitter complaining about the fact that they're not getting everything they want. Meanwhile, the PA and Eric are fighting to get the 60% of guys that are, fringe roster guys that are just trying to figure out if they can make a squad, get them the benefits and things that they need. So, it's really a no-win scenario. Every topic is a dogfight. And so it was great to just see how much Eric really got done.
Let's not forget he also wrapped this up as a global pandemic was just getting going this past March. Not to mention, it was his last duty as president of the NFLPA. So what a bear he was wrestling with. I want to focus in on the point about all the different constituencies and players he had to represent. So we're talking about over 2,000 players' voices that he went out, the PA went out and said, let's get your feedback. Let's hear what you have to say. We want to make something that works for everyone. But that's such a challenge when you have massive contract players, but then you also have guys just fighting to really make a roster. And then you add to that those top guys, when there's only a handful of them, are being loud on social media about how they may not agree with the CBA on something. So the challenge there, really unbelievable, and he did an excellent job, which is going to lead to labor peace for the next 10 years.
Yeah, Tim, in that same conversation with Eric Winston, we talked about how the NFLPA and One Team Collective got really early looks at these unicorn startups like Uber, Slack, and DocuSign. So you were in a similar position when you were working with the Global Sports Venture Studio. So help me understand, how should startups approach their conversations with these kind of organizations?
Yeah, I think that's the right question to ask is, how does the startup approach it? Because there's so much out there for them to think about. There's accelerators, venture studios, collectives, demo days. And it seems like the opportunity to engage in those things are unlimited, but there's costs that come with that. There's the time that you put into pursuing those things. That is a challenge. There's the fact that it's unclear at times, like, is there a fundraise? Is there capital at the end of this? I'm not sure. So you got to do your homework a little bit before you engage. You got to understand that most of these vehicles are actually marketing arms that are trying to promote whatever asset they have and use that as leverage to work with you. So as long as you're going in with that mindset, you can do some big things.
I think that last piece you mentioned makes a lot of sense, especially from the marketing standpoint, where we talk about on the show a lot that the power of the brand is shifting from leagues and teams to the players themselves. And that's not even just the biggest players or the biggest name stars who are going to get endorsement and partnership deals from big brands and startups alike. I'm talking about the local heroes, the guys that everybody knows in Green Bay or Arizona. They're the ones that still should be able to leverage their platform and their brand. And I think when you have something like the PA and the One Team Collective that comes and says, we're going to collectively negotiate these partnerships and these relationships separate from the NFL and the NFL's brand partners, to be able to allow startups and brands to leverage the name and likeness and image of these players, well, that's growing the pie for everybody, but it's also letting the guys who are, maybe not as recognizable still share in some of that action. So I think overall, this is a positive thing. I think startups should start to leverage it and really see where their brand could benefit from an association with a top-tier sports league.
So switching gears a bit, it happens about once a month where tech Twitter naturally devolves into a debate around operator versus non-operator VCs. Jay, I know you've got an opinion on this. Let's hear it.
Yeah, look, Tim, Twitter has never been the place for nuanced conversation, so take all of this with a grain of salt. But there has never been any data that positively correlates a former operator being a better VC. I mean, this is just something that folks perpetuate because it's a narrative that suits them. look, at the end of the day, there's also no data that suggests that a former operator is going to be a more empathetic VC because, they were a founder themselves. Becoming a founder doesn't automatically make you a more empathetic person. Just ask the founders of Away or Uber or WeWork. At the end of the day, you as a startup have to assess, what is it that I actually want from my VCs? What am I looking for? What is the relationship that I want to have? And at what stage does that change? And what do I expect from them? So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what their background is. It matters what other startups tell you and what you can do from a diligence standpoint to see what you want to get out of your VC.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head. This is definitely one of those debates that's perfect for Twitter because it's completely dualistic. It's as if it could only be one or the other. And the reality is that's just not how the world works, and that's not how fundraising works. So there's benefits to both, and we can't even generalize all VCs. It's about who you're across the table from. Look them in the eye, figure out what they bring to the table. What do you need as a company? What do you need as a founder? And usually the first thing is capital, right? So once the capital's taken care of, then we start to go down the checklist, and it can be very powerful to have a former operator alongside you and helping you along the way. But there's also a flip side to that they may bring in some of their biases that don't necessarily jive with where you want to take your company. So I think you need to take that into account. I think you need to see what's available to you. And then at the end of the day, you got to make the call on your own.
Yeah, look, you're absolutely right, Tim. And lastly, where we'll close is Shopify recently announced that they hired former Adidas Yeezy GM Jon Wexler. Wexler's new position is going to be to lead partnerships at Shopify with creators and influencers. I know you've got some hot takes on celebrity and influencer-driven brands, so what do we make of this?
Yeah, I thought that I'd put away my soapbox. I can't really find it to yell and scream at celebrity co-founders to go do it, as I talked about with Ryan Reynolds and his success with Aviation Gin. No, look, I think this is great. I think the bigger piece is that Shopify really is dedicated to creating more tools that enable more entrepreneurs to do more things. Is this going to help a creator, influence, or big-time celebrity develop a brand and distribute it overnight? Not really, but Jon Wexler has incredible experience. He really did help stand up the Yeezy line. So hopefully what we see from the PR cascade can turn into even more celebrities getting involved, because I love to see it.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the point about Ryan Reynolds and aviation, because I think we're going to see a huge wave of these celebrity and influencer-driven brands because they've already got the media and the community that follows them, their fandom. Now they just need the tools to actually monetize that in a way that still feels authentic to who they are and what their brand is. And when you bring somebody like Wexler on to help lead, Shopify, he took Yeezy to $140 million in revenue last year. By Kanye's own admission, turned him into a multi-time billionaire. But then also has helped folks like Beyonce and Pharrell Williams create these brands. I think for Shopify, this makes a lot of sense because, Shopify is now also facing competition on their end. Sure, they're the market leader. They've got the tools that everybody wants to use. But now there are startups that are coming in and saying, we're going to take one subset of it and we're going to disrupt what Shopify does. So look, Shopify has gone and done partnerships with Affirm. They have expanded their partnership and relationship with Walmart. And now they're obviously going after the creator and influencer economy. I think this is a great opportunity for them. They're already killing it. I mean, they've had 55 to 60% month-on-month new store creation on their platform. So I don't think they need my help to tell them, but I think this is a phenomenal step that they're taking, and I'm just excited to see where Shopify goes from here.
Yep, the more tools and more offerings for entrepreneurs, the better. You love to see it. Jay, thanks for joining me on this week's Partner Rundown. Always a pleasure.
Thanks, Tim.